Welcome. Infinitely subtle. If I was to choose a favorite phrase from that particular thing we just chanted, it would be infinitely subtle. How often do we tune into the infinitely subtle parts of our experience? And so much of this practice allows us to do that, to have much more access to the subtleties, the infinite subtleties. And of course, the only thing beyond the sense experience is the subtlety of intuition, that which we know without knowing, without our brains, without sense information. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit tonight. And I titled the talk, The Cloud of Unknowing. If any of you know that phrase, if you've heard of it before. So we did a retreat a couple of weeks ago, and I took advantage of the outside meditation times. We were studying the Genjo Koan, the koan of everyday life. I took advantage of the outside meditation. We were out at the farm to practice sky gazing. Does anybody still do that? Anybody here lie in the grass and just gaze at the sky? Lying down is one of the 4 meditation postures, and it combines open awareness, earthbound relaxation, and watching large and impersonal sky forces on display. This lets us clearly see the perpetual and ever-changing activity of air and heat and wind and water. And our experience is mixed in with that. So experience and sky learning combine. And the sky, in its infinite displays, has a lot to teach us. Just as everything in our life teaches us the Dharma, all of the 10,000 things. So that sky gazing experience brought me to share with you about The Cloud of Unknowing, which was a text that was written by an anonymous 14th century mystic, a Christian mystic. And a mystic is one who opens to the mystery directly and isn't dependent on others for revelation, which really we could say is what Zen practice is all about. We're all mystics. As well as very distracted and fully engaged in the world, materialist functionaries and mystics. So that day at Sesshin, the sky was filled with a powerful dark and light mixture of clouds, layered in kind of a delirium. If a cloud mixture can be delirious, it was. A kaleidoscope of light and dark, sweeping through, penetrating infinite direction, up, down, side to side, and everything in between. It was just phantasmagoria. Gave me the opportunity to use that word, to apply it to something I'm experiencing. So there was so much activity. And in the course of relaxing the physical body and lying on the earth, lying in this grassy ground, the sky's effulgence swept me in. That experience of expansion and continual shifting that was going on. And you know, when you're watching something that is very, very dynamic, and you're really quiet and you're giving yourself over to it, the body feels it too. There's no, the separation disappears. Layer upon layer, cloud, body, flesh body, great swollen cloud formation, pushing and shoving and dissolving. It was really very moving, to say the least. Anyway, and when also there were these veils of rain, you know, how when you look at the sky and there's a place that's raining far off, it's just like a veil of rain. That was going on also. And then there were sections of blue sky, just clear, open, that wonderful blue that happens in the middle of the day. So becoming intimately involved with the site, it really left me free, released of any particular frame of reference, into a full-bodied experience. And an experience like this it's not awakening. It's not awakening, actually. But it sure is encouraging. And it's totally delightful and really refreshing. The energy that's released in that kind of a momentary, full-bodied presence is very, releases a lot of energy, renders a lot of energy. And there was not a cloud to be seen. There we were at the Genjo Koan retreat. Genjo Koan is where is this koan, the mystery of everyday life that we describe with words, but actually the words are irrelevant to the experience. And so there was no cloud. There were no clouds, but rather the whole sky and the earth and everything moving as one dynamic being. And just a great instructor of sky, because it put me in mind also of the completeness of every moment and the way that every experience that we have demonstrates impermanence, interrelated activity, and no self. No fixed anything. There it was, just showing itself right there at this Genjo Koan, and reminding me of full involvement that includes the body, includes the mind, and includes everything. And Dogen calls this leaping into spontaneous, complete activity. And it is, it's spontaneous, complete activity, where everything that is other drops away, and there is only this. So it's going on right now. The Genjo Koan experience teaches us everything. And moments of unity consciousness, such as I'm describing, is instructive about awakening to the true nature of all the 10,000 things, the true nature of life. Aitken Roshi, who was my dear first Zen teacher, often referred to the cloud of unknowing. And it's an important remnant from the mystical Christian church tradition. And we can understand this phrase, the cloud of unknowing, as a reference to God. Very often the commentators who take up this phrase talk about God. Sometimes while sky gazing, we can look on the face of God as a tumultuous sky of light and dark. Sometimes the sky is open, wide open, no clouds to be seen. Just this vast blue. And sometimes it's whatever it is. So what comes to my mind is, once I was at a retreat up at Great Vow Monastery, lying in the upper meadow. The sky was wide open, and I was just relaxing and enjoying resting my knees from all of the zazen. They were straight and toes wiggling, and feeling the grass and feeling the breeze and listening to the breeze. And then at one point I really looked back up with full attention, and there was a choo-choo train, puffy clouds, just going along. Just this little choo-choo train. Truly, I I couldn't believe my eyes. Going along from the Coast Range all the way to the Columbia River, just all along. This sky gazing essaying brought back to mind this phrase, the cloud of unknowing, and which is a really lovely version of what we now refer to as don't know mind. You know that phrase, don't know mind? It's what we aspire to, have a mind that is not crowded with all the things we know and all the ways of framing, verbally framing, describing, narrating everything that we experience, like I'm doing right now. And don't know mind doesn't chase after ecstasy, and it doesn't search for universal truth. It's just free to be here, really here, open to all the subtleties. When the mind, the thinking mind, quiets and stops, and that can take time, we need to be patient. We need to tolerate the restlessness that comes during Zazen long enough for the mind to catch up and just relax. Stop seeking and labeling and judging, and stops in this naked moment, which is so intimate, so direct that nothing need be added or held to or pushed away or thought about. Because the mind that does all that is quiescent. All that seeking becomes irrelevant when we really, the Theravada Buddhism calls it cessation. Cessation, when all of the thinking, more than the thinking, the will, everything is dropped. Everything beside what is irrelevant, is not nearly as interesting as what is. All these times when we're quiet and still, the kind of stillness, the kind of quiet is, in don't know mind, is the kind of knowing the way lovers know each other. Not the way of knowing that's about thinking, but completely present, filled and satisfied. Any reach for words or meaning scatters the moment into past and future. It splits it up. Any reach for words or meaning isn't necessary, because this intimacy that we're looking at in this cloud of unknowing is so thoroughly complete and natural. It's so natural that anyone who's had the experience says, oh yes, this, I remember. We all have this capacity. So it's really important to keep in mind that our practice is not we're not practicing for something that's going to happen later on or in the future, but what is already right here. This is our practice. Always, whatever is right here. So we're prompted in Zen to follow the breath. I mean, when we're meditating, to follow the breath. The breath always is following us. The breath is breathing us always, but we place the mind and attention on the breath, minutely, carefully, subtly, looking into the subtleties of the breath that goes beyond the air, what happens in the body, in the temperature, just whatever you notice. Steadily, we stay with the breath no matter what else is arising. Follow the breath, fully attentive. Don't be distracted. So it's really helpful before you sit down to meditate to remember to say to yourself, okay, I am not going to follow distractions. I'm here to follow my breath. Say it aloud. I find that very helpful. We only need our naked intention to reach, to turn in the direction of, to experience that what is out there reaches right back here. The state that we call prayer, or we call zazen, finds the root itself as form and reflection behold each other. This is the way it's stated in our sutra. Form and reflection behold each other. That's intimate. That's full relation. That's complete relationship. Form and reflection behold each other. Thorough and complete absorption, concentration, resolves attention and its objects. They're no longer separate. They dissolve into the one. And releases us from our habitual impression of self. A self that's separate from everything else. And is continuously changing. And when we see through what seems to be so separate and realize the things of the world as the self, which we're always hearing in Zen, but it's amazing when we realize, yeah, that's true. That's just a really straightforward description. This is what Dogen means in the Genja koan when he says that the 10,000 dharmas advance and realize the self. The 10,000 dharmas meaning every phenomenon. You know, what you realizes you. The eyes with which I see God are it's the eye with which God sees me. So when thinking about this cloud of unknowing, what we all have this capacity to awaken to, and once we've had an experience like this, it helps us acknowledge an entirely different operating system of perception. It changes the way we experience things subtly. Subtly. We don't disappear. We don't lift off. We just recognize the nature of everything, our own nature, and the nature of all things in life. When we wake up to this intentional reconfiguration of our attention, when we have a glimpse of our original intimacy, we remember it as something we've known all along. And it continues to unfold and deepen. There's no end to practice. It's a great thing, you know. I mean, once you get through the initial getting to know practice and it really opens up for you and you realize it for yourself, this is your own practice, it just keeps going. And it's amazing. It's amazing after amazing after amazing. Subtly. So that experience that I described while sky gazing is what we call these days non-dual awareness. There's a whole secular Buddhism, which is the non-dual movement in Buddhism, which is what it's always been, but it's a more approachable American English word, the non-dual. Just as natural and just as challenging to kind of personally awaken to, personally clarify for ourselves. We all know this awareness. As a matter of fact, you probably all have had experience with it. I'm sure you have if you're here. But you may not even realize it. And this is what realization means. Oh, I get it. Realization. Okay. So when we make room for it, when we invite it through steady practice, then it's more likely to become our operating system, especially when we need it. We can truly realize the meaning of refuge, which is always found right here. When we've had some kind of difficult exchange with somebody, and we're feeling really bummed out, but we have experience with the non-dual, we can reach to refuge, not to, rise above and kind of step out of the world, but to open the view of something that when the view is small, it gets very cramped and painful. But when the view is larger, there's room to breathe, to continue to breathe, and to make choices about how best to respond in a way that's going to benefit. It's going to bring benefit. So that brings us to precepts. One of the things we can say about precepts, one of the reasons why they're really important, is that they help us get clearer about our actions and bring us to remembering much more readily patience, kindness, generosity. They embed us in reference to the larger community of self. That's what precepts are all about. The larger community of self, human, animal, plant, mineral, air, everything. This is the self that lives the precepts. The whole world lives the precepts with us. Precepts are koans in action. You can't even meditate if you can't calm the mind. And we can't hold the mind steady on breath if we're upset. So we work on looking into what motivates us and how we want to respond to the people around us and the situations we are called on to respond to. If our energies get tossed around with regret and shame and anger, that's brought on through our own thoughtlessness, or automatic reactivity to the conditions around us or the behavior of others, we can't meditate. So yeah, try meditating. I'm sure you all have, after you've had an argument with the phone company. I mean, usually what happens is you get to have it over and over and over again if you sit there on the cushion and you say, oh, and another thing, oh, I should have said that. Although it is a good thing if you're in big conflict to sit down, quiet down, come back to your breath and settle yourself. I mean, that's really good. If you can't do it seated, do it walking. We contemplate precepts and live them by being ready to meet conditions as they are, with the full strength of practice, which has been practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. You know, if we're a pianist, a performer, we practice every day for 8 hours, and then we give a concert, and then the next morning we're practicing again. Same with Zen, same with anything that we want to keep the channels open, thoroughly open to. The channels, the inner and outer channels, right? Our own minds and actions and those of others. So this life is like this, the cloudscape that I was describing. Dark and light, all shades in between. And dark clarifies the light. The darkness outlines the light. And the light helps us see what is still dark, what we still are not aware of, what we're still not clear about. So in this practice, we don't run from our shadow. We work with everything. Everything is the path. We're not here just to get blissful. Often, if we have a really serious long-term practice, we really feel all the trouble we've been carrying around our whole lives and get a chance to work through it so that it doesn't keep unfolding in that same direction. All of our joy and our suffering. We learn about it, the nature of it, the true nature of everything in our life. And we own the self that gets caught. That's part of the precept of telling the truth. We own up to what we don't know. Don't know mind. Instead of being something terrible, it's like what we aspire to. Oh yeah, I didn't realize that. That wasn't very skillful of me. You know, that's a great thing to be free. I mean, that's freedom. To be able to acknowledge when you don't know something or when you're messed up. To see into our suffering and how we create it for ourselves and how we create suffering for others. To see what we haven't gotten clear about yet. Precepts help us become much more clear-headed and turn in the direction that of a life that we want to be living and we want to be sharing with others. In this ever-changing sea of clouds of unknowing. So that you and I, can be little choo-choo trains of service in the world. And benevolence in a wide open, vast earth and sky. However it is, whatever is filling it at the moment. Thank you.
Please turn to page 5.